The battlefield was silent except for the faint crackle of fire and the hiss of broken machines. Smoke rose in slow curls, drifting across the ruined land. The air smelled of metal and dust. Among the wreckage lay Ryan, a young human pilot whose ship had crashed only hours ago. His arm was cut, and his uniform was torn. Pain spread through his body, yet he forced his eyes open, unwilling to let darkness take him. He heard footsteps. Heavy, steady, echoing across the broken ground. At first he thought it was rescue, maybe his squad coming for him, but soon he saw the shape walking through the smoke. It was not human. The figure was tall, taller than any soldier he had ever seen. The armor was black and silver, shining faintly under the dying light. The head carried a crown-like design, though it was not decoration but a weapon. Her eyes glowed like two burning stars, fixed directly on him. Ryan knew the stories. The soldiers called her the Death Goddess. She was the most feared commander of the alien forces. Whole platoons had fallen before her. They said she never spared an enemy. Once her gaze found you, your life ended soon after. Now she was here, standing over him, and there was no one to stop her. His hand trembled as he reached for his weapon, but the gun was shattered. He clenched his fist anyway, refusing to bow, refusing to beg. If this was his end, he would face it with open eyes. The Death Goddess stepped closer. The ground seemed to shiver beneath her weight. She looked down at him, silent, as if deciding something. Ryan felt his heart beat faster, yet he did not move. He thought she would strike, but instead she bent down. Her hand, covered in dark armor, hovered near his chest. He braced himself, but she did not strike. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, like someone studying a strange creature. Human, her voice was deep and clear, carrying an echo as if more than one voice spoke at once. You live. Ryan forced his dry throat to form words. Not for long. You kill everyone you meet. The Death Goddess paused. She seemed almost surprised. Her glowing eyes narrowed. You do not ask for mercy. Why? Because I know you will not give it, Ryan said, his voice sharp though weak. So why waste my breath? As silence hung between them. The fires behind him crackled. The smoke shifted with the wind. For the first time since he had seen her, Ryan noticed something strange. She was not lifting her weapon. She was not ending him. She was watching him, and there was no hate in her gaze. There was something else. Curiosity. At last she straightened again. Her voice came softer, yet still powerful. I will not kill you. Ryan blinked, thinking he had not heard her right. What? I said I will not kill you. You are mine now. He tried to sit up, pain shooting through his side. Yours? What does that mean? It means you live because I have chosen it, she replied. Your defiance has weight. No other has looked at me this way. Not begging, not fleeing. You stood even in ruin. I wish to see more. Ryan's breath caught. His squad, his people, would never believe this. The Death Goddess sparing a human was impossible. Yet here she was, turning away from him, calling her soldiers with a gesture. They approached, armored giants, but froze when they saw him still breathing. Confusion spread among them. They whispered, though their voices carried no words he understood. Some looked angry, others shocked, but none dared to question her. She faced them and spoke in her own tongue, sharp and commanding. Whatever she said silenced them at once. Then she pointed at Ryan. He comes. Two alien soldiers stepped forward, but Ryan pulled himself to his feet before they could touch him. His legs shook, yet he forced himself upright. He would not be dragged like a prisoner. If he was to walk beside her, he would walk on his own strength. The death goddess watched with a faint spark in her glowing eyes. She gave a small nod, almost hidden behind her dark crown. Together they moved away from the wreckage. Ryan did not understand why his life had been spared. He did not understand what she wanted from him. But as he limped forward with fire behind him and silence ahead, one truth was clear. The death goddess had chosen him, and nothing would ever be the same again. Ryan's mind raced as they walked. His people would call him a traitor for even breathing the same air as her. Yet his heart whispered something else. Maybe this was not the end of his story. Maybe it was the beginning of something greater, something no one could have predicted. He glanced once more at the figure beside him. Her tall form moved with power in every step. She had spared him when she should not have. Why him? Why now? He had no answers. But he would find them. And so began the bond that would change both their worlds. Ryan woke with a start. The ceiling above him was not metal or concrete but carved stone lit by a faint blue glow. His wounds had been bandaged, though not in the way humans treated injuries. Strange cloth wrapped his arm, and a faint warmth spread through his skin as if the material itself was alive. He sat up slowly, his head heavy. It took only a moment to remember where he was. He had been spared on the battlefield. The death goddess, the most feared of her kind, had taken him alive. His heart pounded as he scanned the room. She was there. The tall figure stood in the shadows near the wall, armor still in place, eyes glowing like fire in the dim light. She had not left his side. Ryan clenched his jaw and pushed himself upright. "You," he muttered, his voice dry, "still here?" She did not move. "Yes." "Why, I told you," she said, her tone calm, steady, almost cold. "You live because I chose it. That choice remains." Ryan shook his head. "You make it sound so simple. You destroyed whole squads. You never spared anyone." "Why me?" She took one step closer, her armor shifting with a low hum. "Because you did not fear me. You stood when others knelt. I have no use for those who beg. But you are different." Ryan's chest tightened. He was not sure if her words were praise or a curse. He wanted to shout at her, to tell her to leave him, but a strange thought held him back. If she truly wanted him gone, he would already be dead. Still, her presence burned in his mind. Wherever he went, she followed. When he stepped outside into the alien camp, her shadow stretched beside him. The alien soldiers stared, their eyes cold, their voices sharp as they muttered in their language. Ryan could not understand the words, but he understood the tone. They hated him. They hated that he was alive. And yet none of them dared to touch him. Not while she walked beside him. The humans who had been captured alongside him avoided his gaze. To them he was already marked. A man walking beside the death goddess was no longer one of them. Some whispered he had betrayed them, though he had done nothing. Others feared he was being used as bait for something worse. Ryan tried to ignore their stares, but the weight of it pressed on him. That night, he found her waiting once more as he sat near a dim fire. The stars above the camp were strange, shining through a sky he did not recognize. "You keep following me," he said at last. "Yes." "Why?" He looked at her, his voice sharp. "What do you want from me?" Her glowing eyes held him still. "I want to see what you will do." Ryan frowned. What I will do, what does that mean? It means I do not know your path, she said. My people fear me. They obey. They kneel. You do none of these. That is why I stay. You are a question I cannot answer. He let out a tired laugh. So I'm just an experiment to you. She tilted her head, studying him again. Not experiment. Choice. I could have ended you. I did not. That is a bond now. Ryan turned away, staring into the flames. I don't want a bond with you. Her voice came quiet, almost like a whisper of wind. It is already there. The days that followed only deepened the unwanted bond. When Ryan trained with the other captives, she stood at the edge of the field, watching. When he ate the strange rations given to him, she remained nearby, untouched by hunger. When he tried to sleep, her glowing eyes stayed in the dark like two stars that never faded. His people grew more restless. One evening, a group of human soldiers confronted him. Their faces were tired, filled with anger and fear. You need to tell her to leave, one said. She's poison. Every step she takes with you makes them think we are broken. The others won't trust you if she stays. Ryan clenched his fists. Do you think I want her shadow over me? Do you think I asked for this? Then push her away, another snapped. Show them you're still with us. Or one day they'll stop believing you are. The words struck deep. Ryan had fought beside these men, had bled with them, yet now they looked at him like a stranger. All because of her. That night, when he returned to his corner of the camp, she was waiting as always. He did not sit. He stood before her, fists tight. Do you know what you are doing to me? He asked, his voice low. You make my own people hate me. They think I'm yours now. They don't trust me anymore. Her eyes narrowed, but not with anger. And do you trust me? Ryan froze. The question struck harder than any blade. Did he trust her? The answer should have been easy. She was the death goddess, destroyer of his people. Trust should not even exist. And yet, deep in his chest, he remembered the battlefield. He remembered her standing over him with every reason to end his life. She had not. She had spared him when she never spared anyone. I don't know, he said at last. Her head lowered slightly, as if in thought. That is enough. Trust is not yet broken. She turned, walking away toward the shadows. But her last words stayed with him. That night Ryan could not sleep. The unwanted bond was real, no matter how much he fought it. And deep inside, where he did not want to look, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, it was not as unwanted as he told himself. The camp grew colder each day, not from the weather but from the silence that hung in the air. Ryan could feel it when he walked among his people. They no longer greeted him as they once did. Some turned away. Others whispered when they thought he could not hear. Wherever he went, Myra followed, her tall form casting a shadow that never left his side. Ryan had learned her name at last. Myra. It was short, simple, nothing like the terrifying titles his people had given her. Death Goddess, Slayer, Shadow Queen. Yet when she spoke her name, it was only Myra. Somehow, that made her even harder to understand. One evening, Ryan sat near the edge of the camp with a small group of soldiers. They had once trusted him. He had flown missions with them, fought beside them. Now their eyes were filled with doubt. Ryan, said Tomash, a broad man with a scar down his cheek, you need to face it. She's not here to protect you. She's watching you. Waiting for you to break. Ryan shook his head. You don't know her. She could have killed me a dozen times already. She hasn't. That doesn't make her a friend, another soldier said, his voice sharp. Maybe she wants something worse. Maybe she's using you to learn about us. Ryan looked down at his hands. The words cut deep, not because they were cruel but because they might be true. That night he confronted Myra directly. She stood by the fire, her glowing eyes fixed on the sky. The light of the flames reflected on her armor, turning it red and gold. Why do you stay with me? Ryan asked. His voice carried more frustration than he intended. They don't trust me because of you. They think you're using me. Maybe they're right. So tell me, what do you really want? Myra turned slowly, her expression unreadable. For a moment she said nothing. Then she stepped closer, her shadow stretching over him. You are alive because I willed it, she said. But that is not the end. I have seen thousands of humans fall. None looked at me as you did. You stood even when broken. That is why I remain. I want to know why. Ryan frowned. Why does it matter to you? Her voice lowered. Because strength without fear is rare. Even among my own people, all I see is obedience. They fear me. They follow because they must. But you are different. You defy me even when you cannot win. That is something I cannot ignore. Her words stirred something in him. He wanted to believe she was telling the truth, but doubt gnawed at him. The following day gave him no time to think. The camp was attacked before dawn. Shadows moved through the smoke, rival alien forces who struck without warning. Screams filled the air as soldiers scrambled for weapons. Ryan grabbed a rifle, his body still weak but his will strong. He rushed toward the sound of battle. Blaster fire lit the sky. The enemy surged forward, towering figures in crimson armor. Human soldiers tried to hold the line, but they were outnumbered. Ryan fired again and again, each shot slowing the tide but not stopping it. Then Myra moved. She was a storm among the enemy, her blade flashing with deadly light. Every strike sent crimson soldiers crashing to the ground. Her armor caught the fire of explosions, glowing brighter with each clash. For the first time, Ryan saw why they feared her so much. She was unstoppable. And yet, she was not fighting for herself. She was fighting to shield the humans. When an enemy soldier broke through the line and charged at Ryan, Myra appeared before him in a blur of motion. Her blade cut the attacker down before it could strike. Ryan's heart raced. She had saved him again. The battle raged for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. When the last of the crimson soldiers fled into the smoke, silence returned to the camp. Bodies lay scattered across the ground, human and alien alike. The survivors stared at Myra with a mix of fear and awe. She fought for us, Tomash muttered, his face pale. But another soldier shook his head. Or she fought for him. Don't you see, she'll keep saving him, and the rest of us are nothing. She's binding him to her, and one day he'll forget who he is. Ryan clenched his fists. He wanted to shout at them, to tell them they were wrong, but the doubt inside him was too strong. He turned and walked away, his thoughts heavy. That night, while tending a wound on his shoulder, he felt Myra's presence again. She stood nearby, silent as always. You protected me, Ryan said quietly. Yes. Why? Her eyes glowed brighter in the firelight. Because you are mine. Ryan shook his head. I'm not a possession. I'm not yours to claim. Myra tilted her head. Then what are you? He looked up at her, anger and confusion mixing inside him. I'm human. I'm one of them. Even if they doubt me, even if they fear you, I belong with them. Myra studied him for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice softer than he had ever heard it. Then I will protect them too. If they matter to you, they matter to me. Her words left him speechless. For the first time, he saw something different in her glowing eyes. Not just curiosity. Not just power. Something closer to loyalty. The trial of trust was not over. The humans still doubted her. Ryan still questioned her. But as he lay awake that night, he could not deny the truth. Myra had saved them when she did not need to. She had chosen him when she did not have to. And slowly, against his will, trust began to take root. The camp had survived the attack, but peace did not return. The humans patched their wounds and buried their fallen, yet their eyes kept drifting toward Myra. She stood apart from them, silent and unmoved, her armor still stained with battle. To the humans, she was both their savior and their curse. Ryan felt the weight of their stares every time he walked past. Myra followed him as always, her step slow and steady, her glowing eyes never far from him. It was like a chain binding them together, and the others saw it too. One evening, the human commander, a strict man named Daryl, called for a council meeting. The survivors gathered in a large tent lit by flickering lamps. The air was heavy, filled with anger and fear. Myra did not enter. She waited outside, her tall form visible through the fabric of the tent. Daryl's voice cut through the silence. We cannot allow this to continue. That creature is dangerous. She should be restrained before she decides to turn against us. Murmurs rose among the group. Some agreed instantly. Others remained quiet, unsure. Ryan stood near the back, his jaw tight. She fought for us, he said at last. Without her, more of us would be dead. You all saw it? That doesn't erase what she is, Daryl snapped. She has killed more of our kind than we can count. You think she saved you out of kindness? No. She has her reasons, and none of them are for our good. She saved me more than once, Ryan said firmly. She could have killed me when I was helpless. She didn't. She fought for us when the enemy attacked. That's more than some of our allies have done. Daryl slammed his fist on the table. Enough. This is not about you. This is about all of us. If she stays free, she's a threat. If she's chained, at least we can control her. Ryan's chest tightened. He wanted to shout, but the faces around him told him the truth. Many of the soldiers agreed with Daryl. Fear had already planted itself in their hearts. When the meeting ended, Daryl gave his order. Myra was to be bound at once. Ryan rushed outside to find her waiting exactly where she had been. Her glowing eyes met his, calm and steady. They want to chain you, he said, his voice low. I know, she replied. He stared at her. Then fight back. You could stop them. Her head tilted slightly. If I fight, I prove their fear is true. If I yield, I prove my trust in you. So I will not resist. Ryan's chest ached at her words. She was placing her fate in his hands, yet he had no power to protect her. A group of soldiers approached with heavy chains. They were nervous, their weapons ready in case she struck. Myra stood tall and silent as they bound her wrists and ankles. The chains glowed faintly, designed to weaken her strength. Even so, she made no move to stop them. As they dragged her toward a holding cell, Ryan walked beside her, unable to leave her. Inside the cell, the air was damp and cold. The chains clinked as Myra sat down, her tall frame folding slowly to the ground. Ryan gripped the bars, anger burning in his chest. "This isn't right," he muttered. "You don't deserve this." Her glowing eyes fixed on him. "Do you doubt me?" He shook his head. "No. But they do. And I can't change their minds." "Then speak for me," she said softly. "Words have weight. You have seen me as they have not. If you trust, then tell them." Ryan felt torn in two. If he stood for her, his people might call him a traitor. If he stayed silent, Myra would remain in chains, treated as nothing more than a beast. He looked at her, remembering the way she had fought for them, the way she had chosen not to end him when she had every reason to. The next day, the council gathered again. This time Myra was not outside but locked away. Ryan stood before the group, his voice steady though his hands shook. "You are wrong about her," he said. "She is not our enemy. She could have destroyed us all last night, but she didn't. She fought for us. She bled for us. If you chain her, you chain the one who saved your lives." Some soldiers looked uneasy. Others shook their heads. Daryl's face remained hard. "She is a weapon," the commander said. "Weapons are useful only when controlled. I will not risk our survival on trust in a monster." Ryan's voice rose. "Then maybe you should risk it on me. I trust her. If you doubt her, then doubt me too. But I will not turn against the one who kept me alive when death was certain." The council broke into argument. Some sided with Daryl, others hesitated, caught between fear and reason. The division split them like a blade. Outside the tent, Ryan walked alone into the night air. His heart was heavy, but he had spoken the truth. Whether they listened or not, he could not betray Myra. Later, he returned to the cell. Myra looked up as he entered, her glowing eyes calm as always. "You spoke," she said. "Yes," he answered. "But I don't know if it was enough." She gave the smallest nod. "It is enough for me." Ryan sat on the cold ground beside her cell. The chains rattled softly as she shifted. Neither spoke for a long while. The silence between them was no longer empty. It was filled with trust, fragile but real. The clash of worlds was not only between humans and aliens. It was inside every heart in that camp. Fear against trust. Hatred against hope. And Ryan knew the fight had only just begun. The camp was restless. Soldiers sharpened their weapons, checked their supplies, and whispered in low voices. The attack from the crimson armored enemy had shaken them badly. Everyone knew another strike was coming. Yet instead of preparing together, they were divided. Some blamed the enemy. Others blamed Myra. Ryan spent most of his time near her cell. She sat calmly in her chains, her glowing eyes steady, as if the iron around her wrists meant nothing. She never complained. She never begged. That only made Ryan's heart twist more. One evening, Tomasz approached him outside the cell. His voice was low, careful not to be heard by the guards. "Ryan," he said, "we have bigger problems than her. I heard the officers talking. Someone gave our location away before the last attack. That's how the enemy found us." Ryan frowned. "You're saying there's a traitor?" Tomasz nodded. "Yes. But the commander doesn't want to admit it. He says Myra's presence drew them in. That's the story he's spreading." Ryan's stomach tightened. That's not true. She fought harder than anyone. I know, Tomash said. But lies are easier than facing the truth. And if things go bad again, they'll blame her. Or you. Before Ryan could answer, an alarm rang through the camp. Shouts echoed across the tents. Soldiers grabbed their weapons and rushed to the walls. The enemy was here again. Smoke and fire filled the air as Crimson warriors stormed the camp. Their weapons cut through defenses with ease. Humans fired back, but the numbers were against them. Ryan grabbed his rifle and joined the fight, his heart pounding. Explosions rocked the ground. Flames lit the night sky. The enemy had come in full force this time. In the middle of the chaos, Ryan's eyes darted to the cell where Myra was chained. She remained inside, watching calmly as the camp burned. For the first time, he saw doubt flicker in her glowing eyes. The enemy broke through the defenses. Soldiers fell one after another. Ryan fired until his weapon overheated, but it was not enough. A Crimson warrior charged at him, blade raised high. He braced himself, certain it was the end. But then the chains broke. Myra burst from the cell like a storm, her blade flashing in the firelight. She cut the enemy down before it could touch Ryan. Her armor glowed, her movements swift and precise. Even wounded by shackles, she fought with strength that shook the ground. The humans froze, stunned by the sight. For a moment, it seemed the death goddess had returned to the battlefield. Myra, Ryan shouted, "Why are you still fighting for us?" Her voice rang out through the fire and smoke. Because I chose you. And if they matter to you, then they matter to me. With every strike, she pushed the enemy back. She shielded soldiers who had once cursed her name. She tore through Crimson warriors like a blade through cloth. Still, the battle was brutal. Ryan fought at her side, covering her flanks while she struck down wave after wave. The ground was littered with bodies, the air thick with smoke. At last, the enemy began to retreat. The survivors stood among the wreckage, breathing hard, weapons heavy in their hands. Myra stood tall, her armor cracked, her blade dripping with fire. She had saved them all. And yet, instead of thanks, silence filled the camp. Daryl stepped forward, his face pale but his voice hard. She broke free on her own. She fought because it served her. Do not mistake her actions for loyalty. Ryan turned on him, rage burning in his chest. You blind fool. She saved you. She saved all of us. If she wanted us dead, we'd be nothing but ash. Daryl's eyes narrowed. And yet, the enemy keeps finding us. Why do they strike only where she is? Why do they come in numbers we cannot match? Tomash spoke up, his voice firm. Because someone here told them. I heard you, Commander. You met with a stranger before the first attack. You said it was an ally. But now I wonder. The crowd turned. Murmurs spread. Ryan felt his chest tighten. Could it be true? Daryl's face darkened. Lies. Desperate words from desperate men. But the way his eyes shifted told another story. Ryan stepped closer, his voice sharp. It was you, wasn't it? You gave them our location. You wanted them to strike so you could blame her. The commander's hand moved toward his weapon. Myra was faster. In an instant, she struck the gun from his grip and pressed her blade to his throat. The glow in her eyes flared like fire. Daryl froze, his face pale with fear. The soldiers around them looked from Ryan to Myra to their commander. The truth was clear now. The betrayal had not come from the death goddess. It had come from their own leader. For a long moment, silence held the camp. Then Tomash spoke. "What do we do with him?" Ryan looked at Daryl, then at Myra. His heart was heavy, but the choice was clear. "We survive. Without him." The soldiers dragged Daryl away, his shouts lost in the noise of the camp. Myra lowered her blade, her armor glowing faintly in the firelight. She looked at Ryan, her voice quiet. "You see now. Trust is rare. Even among your own." Ryan nodded slowly. "Yes. But I trust you." For the first time, Myra's gaze softened. She said nothing, but the glow in her eyes dimmed to a calm light. The camp was broken, their numbers small, but they were alive. And now the truth was out. Myra was no longer their prisoner. She was their shield. Yet Ryan knew this was not the end. The enemy would come again. And when they did, it would take more than trust to survive. The camp was no longer the same. With Daryl exposed as the traitor, many soldiers felt both relief and shame. Relief that the blame did not belong to Myra, and shame that they had doubted the one who saved them. Still, trust did not come easily. Some kept their distance from her, their eyes wary. Others began to whisper a different story, one where the death goddess was no longer their enemy but their protector. Ryan walked among them, carrying this heavy shift like a weight. He knew their survival now rested not only on weapons but on fragile bonds. Myra moved quietly through the camp, no longer chained, yet still apart. She never demanded their trust. She simply remained near Ryan, silent and steady, like a shadow that could not be torn away. That evening, as the fires burned low, Ryan sat on a rock at the edge of the camp. The stars above shone cold and distant, scattered across the dark sky. He heard the sound of armor and knew she was there. Myra stood beside him, tall and unyielding, her glowing eyes fixed on the horizon. "You are free now," Ryan said quietly. "You could leave if you wanted. No one can stop you." Her head turned slightly toward him. "And go where?" "Back to your people," he answered. "Back to being who you were before." Myra's voice carried no hesitation. "I was death goddess to them. A title, not a person. They feared me, not for who I am but for what I did. With you, I am something else. I will not return." Ryan's heart tightened. He stared at the ground, unsure how to respond. "So you stay because of me?" "Yes," she said simply. Her honesty left him silent. There was no hidden meaning in her words, no mask. She spoke the truth as she saw it, and he could not deny it. Days passed as they prepared to move. The camp was no longer safe, and they all knew it. The Crimson Warriors would return, stronger than before. They gathered supplies, patched weapons, and planned their route through hostile territory. Ryan and Myra led small groups beyond the camp to scout the land. The journeys were dangerous, but with Myra beside them, few dared to strike. During one of these journeys, they found themselves alone, crossing a ridge that overlooked a valley filled with strange glowing plants. The air shimmered faintly, as if touched by energy. Myra paused, her gaze fixed on the valley below. "This place," she said, "was once a battlefield. Long before your kind came here. My people fought among themselves. Many fell. The ground remembers." Ryan looked at her. "Is that why you were called Death Goddess, because of battles like this?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Yes. I ended many lives. None escaped me. Mercy was weakness, or so I was taught. I carried that name because I never spared. Until you. Her words cut through him. He had always seen her as a weapon, but now he saw something deeper. She carried her title like a burden, not a crown. Why me? He asked. Why did you spare me when you never spared anyone else? Her glowing eyes met his, calm but heavy. I do not know fully. Perhaps because you did not kneel. Perhaps because in your eyes I saw something I had never seen. You did not see Death Goddess. You saw Myra, even when you did not know my name. Ryan's throat tightened. He had no answer. All he could do was look at her, the figure who had once been his enemy, now standing as his protector. When they returned to the camp, the survivors noticed the change. Myra no longer moved like a prisoner among them but like one of their own. She carried supplies, lifted heavy equipment, and even helped dig trenches. Some soldiers still whispered, but others began to nod to her in quiet respect. One night, a group of younger soldiers approached Ryan. We saw her guard the north line for hours without rest, one of them said. She's stronger than 10 of us. If she's really with us, maybe we have a chance. Ryan nodded, though his heart was conflicted. He trusted her now, more than he ever thought he would. Yet he knew the war was not over. Trust alone would not save them from what was coming. The bond between Ryan and Myra grew stronger with each day. They spoke little, but silence carried meaning. When he walked into danger, she followed without question. When she stood in the shadows, he no longer feared her presence. They had become a single force, unspoken yet unbreakable. But their peace was short. Scouts reported movement on the horizon. The Crimson Warriors were coming again, this time with greater numbers. The survivors prepared to leave the camp behind. As they marched through the night, Ryan walked at the front with Myra beside him. The moonlight reflected off her armor, casting silver across the path. He glanced at her, his voice low. Do you ever wish you could go back, before all this, before you became Death Goddess? She shook her head. No. What is past is stone. It cannot change. But what comes next is still unshaped. That is where I choose to walk. Her words gave him strength. He realized then that she was no longer only an alien warrior or a feared title. She was something more. She was a shield he had not expected, and perhaps the only hope they had. The journey was long, filled with danger at every turn. Yet wherever they went, Myra stood firm. The soldiers began to follow her example, their fear slowly replaced by respect. They saw not a death goddess but a guardian who walked beside them. For Ryan, the bond was no longer unwanted. It was the anchor that kept him steady in a world filled with chaos. And though he knew the battles ahead would be fierce, he also knew he would not face them alone. The rising bond between human and alien had been forged in fire and doubt, but now it burned with quiet strength. And in that strength, a new future waited to be written. The survivors moved quickly through the night. Their camp was gone, their supplies light, but their will to live burned strong. Every man and woman carried the memory of betrayal and the weight of battles already fought. At the front walked Ryan, and beside him moved Myra, tall and silent, her glowing eyes fixed on the path ahead. For days they traveled across broken lands, through valleys of ash and mountains carved by war. The Crimson Warriors hunted them, striking in small numbers, testing their defenses. Each time, Myra led the fight, and each time, the survivors stood stronger. Her presence no longer drew whispers of fear. Now it brought hope. But hope was fragile. Scouts soon returned with grim news. The enemy was gathering for a final assault. An army larger than any they had faced before was moving toward them. There would be no escape this time. The survivors would either stand or fall. Ryan gathered them at the ruins of an old fortress, its walls half broken but still strong enough to shield them for a time. The soldiers listened in silence as he spoke. "We cannot run anymore," he said. "They will chase us until none are left. But here, together, we can make a stand. We fight not for victory but for each other. And we fight with Myra at our side." The soldiers nodded, their faces set with determination. Even those who once doubted now held their weapons firmly. If the death goddess chose to stand with them, then they would stand with her. As the sun set, Myra walked the walls of the fortress. Her armor glowed faintly in the fading light, her blade resting against her shoulder. Ryan followed her, watching the calm strength in her steps. "Do you believe we can survive this?" he asked. She looked out over the horizon where the enemy fires burned like stars. "Survival is uncertain. But I will fight until the last breath. And I will not let you fall." Her words steadied him more than any shield. For the first time, he felt that they were not simply resisting death but shaping something greater. A bond between species that had once been enemies now stood as their strongest weapon. The night was quiet before the storm. Soldiers prepared in silence, tying bandages, sharpening blades, and saying their last prayers. Ryan sat by the fire, his weapon across his knees. Myra sat across from him, her glowing eyes soft in the firelight. "Why do you stay so close to me?" he asked. Her answer came without pause. "Because you remind me I am more than death goddess. You gave me a name. Myra. In your eyes, I am not a monster. I am myself." Ryan swallowed the lump in his throat. He had no words left, only a nod that spoke of trust deeper than any oath. At dawn, the enemy came. The horizon shook with their march. Crimson warriors filled the fields, their banners high, their weapons gleaming. The ground trembled beneath their numbers. Against them stood only a handful of humans and one alien warrior once feared as a goddess. The battle began with fire. Arrows of energy rained from the sky, striking the fortress walls. Stones cracked, dust filled the air. The survivors held firm, returning fire with rifles and cannons salvaged from old wars. The air roared with the clash of steel and light. Myra stood at the front, her blade flashing in arcs of fire. She moved like a storm, cutting through the crimson warriors as if they were nothing. Each strike carried the weight of centuries, yet behind her strength was a new purpose. She was not killing for a title, not fighting for fear. She was fighting for them. Ryan fought beside her, his rifle burning hot, his hands steady. He covered her when the enemy swarmed, and she shielded him when blades drew too close. Together they moved as one, human and alien, warrior and soldier, bound not by command but by choice. Hours passed, and the ground was littered with bodies. The fortress walls crumbled, and the survivors bled, but they did not break. Myra's glow lit the battlefield, a beacon that drew both fear and hope. The crimson warriors pressed harder, their numbers endless, but still she stood. At last, the enemy's leader appeared, a towering figure in crimson armor, his blade larger than any man. His voice thundered across the battlefield. "Death Goddess," he called. "You betrayed your kind for these fragile humans. Today I end you." Myra stepped forward, her eyes burning bright. "I was never your death goddess. I am Myra. And today you fall." The two clashed in the center of the battlefield. Steel rang against steel, sparks flew, the ground cracked beneath their strikes. The fight shook the field, drawing every eye. Ryan watched, his chest tight, knowing this battle would decide everything. The Crimson leader struck hard, his blows heavy as mountains. Myra countered with speed and precision, each strike a flash of light. The battle raged, neither yielding. At last, with a final cry, Myra drove her blade through his chest. The leader staggered, then fell, his crimson armor shattering on the stone. A silence fell across the battlefield. The enemy army, seeing their leader slain, faltered. Fear rippled through their ranks. The survivors raised their weapons and charged, driving them back. The Crimson warriors broke, retreating into the horizon, their banners falling in the dust. The fortress stood, broken but unyielding. The survivors cheered, their voices echoing across the ruins. They had endured. Against all odds, they had won. Myra stood in the center, her blade heavy in her hand, her armor cracked and scorched. She turned to Ryan, her glowing eyes soft. "It is done," she said. He stepped to her side, breathing hard, his face streaked with dust and blood. "Not just done," he answered. "You changed everything. You saved us." Her gaze lingered on him. "No. We saved each other." The survivors gathered around, no longer seeing a death goddess but a guardian who had fought for them, bled for them, and chosen them. For the first time, Myra was not feared. She was honored. As the sun rose over the battlefield, Ryan stood beside her, knowing their bond had carried them through fire and war. She had spared his life once, but now it was clear. Together, they had spared the future of them all. And so, the tale of the death goddess who would not leave the side of a human soldier became the story of Myra, the guardian who stood with humanity.